All right, my friends, welcome back to Real Estate Bites. This is episode number 77. I try to bring some good content to you every week. I want to bring real estate news, insights, peel back the curtain on the industry a little bit, let you guys see what goes on behind the scenes. So this week is about whether or not it's a good time to buy. I get buyers, prospective buyers, clients asking me all the time, is it a good time to buy now? Should I wait for rates to drop? What do you think, Jonathan? And it's a very difficult question to answer in a lot of ways, simply because I have no idea what's going to happen with rates, right? So last year we expected the rates to drop significantly. We were told by the Fed that they were going to do some aggressive rate cutting in the second half. They did cut some rates, and the market priced it in for a bit, but we went down to about 6.15% and then it bounced right back up towards 7. We've seen it over 7 here the past couple of weeks. So hard to tell what happens with interest rates. So in order to help me answer that question, is it a good time to buy, or should we wait until we see improved interest rates? I've asked a good friend of mine and friend of the show, Jay Slone of Legacy Home Finance, to join me and help me answer that question. So right now, I'm going to bring Jay on into the virtual stage. Mr. Slone, how you doing? Can you hear me?
Hey, what's up, Jonathan? Good afternoon.
All right. So, hey, man, I get this question all the time, Jay. Is it a good time to buy, or should buyers wait until rates come down? What do you think?
Well, like you said before, that's a pretty loaded question. So here's what's going on right now. So the market isn't where, everybody thought it would be. So we were expected to have, rates in the 4.5s per economic forecast like 2 years ago. But the good news is that we're still in a better place than we were 2 years ago, where rates were, closer to 7.5, even approaching 8%. It's always the best time to buy today. And the reason for that is the way that we're seeing the supply and demand issues that the country is still facing. And where the new administration definitely has their work cut out for them, in the sense that building supply versus expected family growth are really off still by quite a bit. So they're expected to build another, almost 2 million new homes this year, but the demand is closer to, 2 to 3 million homes that are going to be needed by families, right? And as we continue to have that supply and demand issue, that is going to cause the cost of real estate to increase, because supply versus demand, right? So that's an easy one. So if you can get on the equity train, so to speak, and buy now, gain equity and refinance at a later time, that's one positive. The other positive is that you can always refinance the rate later to get the payment that you wanted, because the market is cyclical. So what I've learned in my many years of being a loan officer is that every 5 years there seems to be something that happens that will drive rates to go down. 5 to 7 years is really the key. Okay. So if history repeats itself, which it usually does in finance, we'll see some type of drop to where rates will come down so people can get closer to the payment that they wanted. Okay. So that's the second reason to buy now, is you can gain the equity and still get maybe the rate and the payment that you wanted later. And thirdly, it's just, think about it this way. So in 2021, we saw all of it together, right? In 2022, when rates were 2 to 3%. So not only were we having inventory issues a little bit, right, because of supply and demand, but we were also seeing so many buyers in the market at one time. You remember those days? So we were seeing over asking. We were seeing 10 to 20% over asking. We were seeing appraisal gaps. We were seeing all of these things that made the client, really back then, what it seemed like paying exponentially more. That's all ironed out. But the point is that we're going to see a feeding frenzy like that. So if you're a buyer on the sidelines right now and you just don't know what to do, talk to a real estate professional is my best advice. Jonathan, talk to me, or someone that if you have a relationship with somebody, because waiting is going, if you wait on the sidelines, let's say you wait another year or 2 years until rates do fall to 5% or however long it takes, you're going to be put into the arena competing against, and bidding against on homes against 5 times the amount of buyers that are in the market right now. And that is going to do two things. You're going to be frustrated and you're going to burn out because every home you're going to go is going to have multiple offers guaranteed. Where the market is a little bit softer right now, in the sense, not saying it's soft, but in the sense that it's winter. It is, homes are sitting just a little bit longer. It's been really, really cold outside. So you might be able to find a deal now for a home you want in the limited inventory that we have with less competition, is all I'm saying. But if you compete against that, it's going to drive that price up, because there's more buyers obviously in the market, and you didn't gain any equity because you didn't buy 2 years ago, and equity is going to be, what's the average appreciation rate in Northeast Ohio, Jonathan? Anywhere between 6 and 8 and upwards from there, roughly per year now.
I mean, we saw it was more like 3% from 2023 over to 2024, but before that, it was closer to 10 on average annual basis. I mean, since 2020, you're talking about 40%.
Correct. So what I'm saying is an average over the course of the last 5 years, we've seen an average of 6% appreciation divided by 5, right? So 30 to 40% in most areas of Northeast Ohio. So, would you have liked to have that 30% equity and maybe be selling, in a few years when the rates drop? And then, because that's another option that you could have. So, long-winded answer for you, but the option, and it's not a sales thing. It's just the opportunity to buy is always yesterday, because you're going to gain equity. It's going to be consistent, and there's no supply answer solution at this moment for the demand that we have, especially with rents being pushed up and things like that.
Jay, I'd like to touch on a couple points that you've made. One is the most recent point you made. This is something that I've talked about on the show a number of times. Once rates come down, it's going to stimulate demand. More buyers are coming into the marketplace. That's going to push home prices up, because builders simply cannot keep up with the supply needs. They cannot keep up with demand. They can't build fast enough. And so we're going to remain in a limited inventory environment for the foreseeable future. I contend that without, we're looking at a 15 to 20 year time frame for builders to catch up, unless we have some terrible job loss recession happen where the economy just totally gets smashed, right? Some black swan event happens, the economy gets smashed, and then we're looking at a whole different set of needs and concerns. So if you wait for rates to drop, you're going to pay more for the house. You're going to be in a more competitive environment, like Jay was just talking about. But another thing is, let's say you want to wait for rates to drop, so maybe I'll just build. Well, we're talking about, the cost of building, it's skyrocketed post-pandemic. And whereas a lot of things like lumber, drywall, these elements, these building materials, they leveled out and recovered some, a lot of metals and whatnot have not. So building supply costs are still up and high. And now we have an administration that talks a lot about tariffs on imported goods. So many of these building materials that are imported from other countries. And if they're being tariffed, right, that is intended to stimulate manufacturing here in the United States. But that doesn't happen overnight. It takes years to permit, construct, and then get plants operational or mines operational. There are certain mines in certain states that have been in a permitting process for literally decades. So they're waiting to see if maybe building as an option isn't so great. I mean, the tariffs might be bluff and bluster. I don't know, anybody that's ever read The Art of the Deal by our current president knows that bluff and bluster is one of his strategies, and he's really good at it. We've seen that happen. But if he's for real, and if he wants to levy high tariffs on these materials, you will be paying a much higher price for copper and wood and steel, etc., until manufacturing can actually come online here in the United States. And again, you're talking 3 to 5, 6, 7, 8 years before all that stuff is really humming and prices can come back down. The cost of insurance is going up. I think it's going to go up even more after what we've seen happen down in Florida and up through North Carolina. after the wildfires in California, this snow that just went throughout the South and caused damage, I think insurance is going to be problematic again. So waiting almost guarantees that you're going to pay more in the long run for your house. So the second point that I wanted to talk about and ask you about, you said that there's about a 5 to 7 year rate cycle in mortgage lending, which would put us what? I mean, we're then 2 years away from maybe seeing that cycle come full circle.
Yeah, I mean, rates started to really go up, mid 2022 to late 2022 to now. So we're starting, especially they really started to go up. They started to trend up in 2022 with that they're still reasonable, right? And then now they've gone to where we're sitting high 6s, low 7s, or better in some cases, but that's really what the national average is right now. So I think in the next 18 months, we should see something. The Fed funds rate, demanding that be cut isn't really going to do anything. For those that don't know, the Fed funds rate is how Americans and businesses borrow money from banks, and how you borrow money as a business for car loans, credit cards, home equity lines of credit, boat loans, like all of those things, business loans, all of those things.
Jay, so for people out there watching who haven't heard this kind of stuff before, what Jay's talking about is when you hear on the news that the Fed's going to cut rates, this is what he's talking about. The Fed's not going to cut mortgage rates. They don't do that. They're not directly involved with it. They're cutting the Fed funds rate. So I apologize. I just want to make
No, you're good. You're good. So I'm sorry if I just kind of assumed.
No, keep going, brother.
But yeah, so mortgage rates do not directly follow the Fed funds rate, if you don't know. So it's how we borrow money, which is all good. It's great for us if that rate cut does happen, and it has a trickle down effect on other areas of the economy. Now, the 10-year Treasury yield is really what the mortgage bond or mortgage-backed securities follow. So the 30-year fixed directly follows the 10-year. So if you see the 10-year Treasury yield go up, rates are going up. If you see it fall, rates are falling. So right now, it's at 4.6%. So you just add roughly 2.25% to that rate, and you'll get your 30-year fixed average rate, which is about 6.875. So that's how it's done. So, but going back to what we were talking about is, the rate cycle is, and hopefully quantitative, the easing and everything else like that happened, where the mortgage was buying billions and billions of dollars in mortgage-backed security bonds and things like that to keep the rates artificially low during COVID, all of those things. That was like a once in a lifetime shot. But rates, honestly, in a healthy economy should be between 5 and 6%, not 3 and 4%. So people that really want to see that 3% market, happen again, it comes at a price of something else always. So not to be doom and gloom here, but when mortgage rates are super, super low, the world is kind of on fire in some way. So when we have these booms, it's a pandemic, it's a financial collapse, it's something crazy happening. So I don't really feel like Americans, we don't want those things to happen to get a 3 or 4% rate on our mortgage. I think if we settled in the low 5s, I think it would make things more affordable, because people can say, okay, you know what? I can sell my house and buy another one and go from my 3.25% to a 5.5%, and that's not too bad. Where I think they're really struggling, Jonathan, is that they're saying, okay, I'm going to give it my 3.5%. I'm going to go to a 7. That doesn't sound really as attractive. So that's also causing a pause on inventory too for you in getting sellers to buy. And then we're also seeing something too, just real quick, that we really didn't talk about this, but we're also seeing a lot of people from the West, because of weather conditions, taxes, politics, things like that, moving from Washington, Oregon, and California to the Midwest. So we're also seeing, and I did probably 12 to 15, I want to say, relocation loans last year, where people were literally moving from the West Coast and other parts of the country to the Midwest because it was more affordable, tax rates were better, and it was just better.
You can work remotely.
Exactly right.
I sold them homes.
Yeah, exactly. So we're seeing also for local competition and things like that happening too. We're seeing some of that also. But we're, from every economic forecast I'm looking at or I've read, everybody is predicting that, like, hey, with this new administration, with some of the policies that could be pushed, tariffs will be a factor, but we can't have lower rates when our money is being devalued with inflation, right? So the two can't exist, right? Does that make sense? So if we keep living in an inflationary time where we were close to 2%, and now because of economic spending, we're back up closer to 3%. So if we want to see better mortgage rates, inflation definitely has to come down, which hopefully, we see some of that, and it lowers rates in the next year and a half to 2 years, and we fit in that cycle. So that's what I'm hoping.
Yeah, it's interesting. They push rates up because they want to disincentivize lending. They want to disincentivize people from borrowing money because that is what's going to help bring inflation down. And it has disincentivized a lot of people from borrowing, as we're having this conversation right now about it. People are waiting for rates to come down. They're not taking out that home loan. But the reality is it's not having as good an impact as they'd like on inflation. It certainly hasn't had the kind of impact that was expected on home values. Home values have remained steady. I mean, I've been tracking this quarterly now for a year, the median square foot value of homes sold, and it went up, and it just flatlined. Maybe the smallest of corrections this last quarter, but last week I saw the median square foot value jump back up again to near 170, and it's not quite there this week, but home prices are staying strong, and that is a definite function of a low inventory environment. So I think your point is well taken. Waiting for a lower interest rate may very well make your life as a buyer much more difficult.
And one more thing that I just want to add real quick, because I know you got to go, is if you're looking to restructure your finances, or your family's outgrown your home and you have debt. I mean, the credit card debt in America just hit over $1 trillion for the first time in history. The average amount of household debt is pretty high, and and the reason is just because Americans are frivolously spending. I just think they're trying to stay above, tread water here. Because think about it, everything that we do anymore costs more money, from feeding our families to grocery shopping to, your kids' functions for whether they play sports or not, daycare, just anything that we do is costing more, and we're not making more money. We're not keeping up, our income is not keeping up with the inflated, inflated amount that we're paying for things. So people are relying on credit cards to stay afloat, to try to keep up the lifestyle and have the best life for their families. And, it's turning into debt. And if you need somebody like me, please give me a call. We can take a look and just see what opportunities we have to kind of maybe restructure some things and put you on a better financial path, so you can still obviously do all the things you need to for your family, put away money, and then maybe save up and towards the next house you want to buy if you're outgrowing it, or downsize for that matter. So, debt consolidation, refinancing has become a very popular product these days. So refinancing, putting your debt together and doing that, or doing a home equity line of credit to pay off those debts, has become extremely popular. It actually makes up almost 50% of mortgage applications today.
Well, folks, you can see his name, his company, and his number right there at the bottom of the screen. This is Jay Slone. He's one of the best in the business. Hey, my man, thank you very much again for joining me. And
of course,
I always look forward to these, man. So we'll be in touch soon. We'll get one of these arranged here in the next couple months. And it's great seeing you again, Jay.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Jonathan. Talk to you later.
Have a great weekend, my friend.
You too. Bye.
All right. That was Jay Slone of Legacy Home Finance, giving us some education on what he thinks about mortgage rates and whether or not it's a good idea to wait for them to come down and buy. Okay. We are going to move now into the statistics section of the show. I'm going to share my screen here. All right. So this is the last week of sales in Lorain County. If you're new to this, I pull all these statistics from the MLS. I only look at Lorain County. It has served us well as a good sample size for the Midwest, because usually what I see here tracks pretty well, not only throughout the state, but really the Midwest. When you get out to the coast, things change a bit, but for the most of the country, the trends that we're tracking here, they stick. So again, episode 77, this morning, there were 410 condominiums and single family homes. I don't look at multifamilies. I don't look at mobile homes. So 410 was the inventory for condos and single family homes. There were 51 closings in the county last week. The median square foot of those houses sold was 1,623 square feet. The median home value was $240,000. Median price per square foot was $158.56. You see, last week we had that jump, but that 156, 157 sort of average has been very consistent now for the last 2 months. 37 days on market was the median on market time for the homes sold last week. The mortgage rate market was at 7.12% for a commercial loan. Now, Jay was talking about, a rate about 25 points less. This is an aggregate of average rates across the country. I get this from Mortgage News Daily. It's not necessarily as localized as Mr. Slone is. And then the big sale of the week was $985,000 in Avon Lake. Let's go take a look at this beauty off Walker Road on Ballast Court. All right. Nice big home. What you got here? 4,800 square feet, 4-bed, 3.5 bath on a half-acre lot. New construction. You've got that black and white, sort of an Art Deco feel. Very contemporary. Beautifully done. If you remember Jenny Gennaro talking about the white walls and how it makes everything expand and look larger, it definitely does here. The use of black to offset and to pop just looks really, really nice. The black rail, the black fireplace even makes the television stand out better. And you can see they've carried this theme throughout most of the house. That's amazing. That is a beautiful bathroom. Nice big California closet. And that is a big, beautiful monster home in Avon Lake. Sold at $985,000. All right. That wraps it up for episode number 77 here on Real Estate Bites. I appreciate you guys showing up week in and week out. Share this with friends and family if you think the information is worthwhile. And as always, until next week, guys, take care of yourselves. Take care of one another. I love you, people.